I put a post on Facebook or Instagram, and then if I'm doing a good job, that post will turn into a conversation. Well, that conversation doesn't necessarily then turn into a customer. So it doesn't go post sell, post customer, post team. This is where a lot of people measure their social media incorrectly. Hey there, and welcome to the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. My name is Sam Hind, and I am so honored and privileged to have you join me today to hear a little bit more about how to start meaningful conversations on social media. Today, I want to talk about the thing that is the most important thing when it comes to your activity on social media. Social media is not about gaining more followers. It's not about being an influencer. It's not about posting more, and it's not about being seen by more people. Social media is a vehicle, a tool that we use to grow our businesses. But growth in a business requires conversion. Social media is simply the tool that gets us to that point. And so today I want to talk about something that is probably one of the most frequently asked questions I get, which is how do I take posts and convert them into sales or team or business growth? And the answer to that, my friends, is conversation. Converting people into having that belly-to-belly, face-to-face, one-on-one situation. Now, depending on what type of business you're in, is going to depend on what this needs to look like for you. But I don't care what business you're in. To be the most successful you can be, you want people to know that they matter. You want to converse with them, you want to build a relationship with them, and you want that one-to-one interaction. So how do you get people there? Well, today I want to share with you a simple 4-step process I call the FORM method that's going to help you with this. And I really encourage you, grab a pen and paper today, take some notes. I'm going to give you a strategy that I use, that I teach inside of my memberships to people who are growing their businesses on social media every day. And this is so simple, so easy, absolutely anybody can do it. So get ready, let's dive in and let's talk about how to start meaningful conversations on social media. Okay, so first up, I want to start with something very, very important here, and that is the importance of remembering that people buy from those they like, know, and trust. Now, I know that you're not hearing that for the first time, but I want to keep drilling that into you because as you're posting on social media, you've got to keep this in mind. People are not going to buy from you, book with you, do business with you the very first time they see you. They need to see you multiple times to build that trust up, which is why it's important to show up in many different ways over time. And remember that just because people aren't interacting doesn't mean they're not watching. This is what I call dating. Now, ordinarily, I would teach the dating 101 method, and we do have a system that we teach inside of our memberships that help you date your customers in an appropriate way, of course. But we do have some scripts and processes that we use because getting to know your audience is really important. And, you know, I love the quote by C.S. Lewis, who said that friendship is established in that moment that someone utters the words, "Wait, what? You too? I thought I was the only one." That, my friends, only happens when someone gets to know you. And it doesn't mean that they need to have had a conversation with you, but they need to have seen you, which means if you're showing up on social media and all you're posting is about your products, your business, and you're not showing up at all, that is a real problem. So remember that dating your customers, having those conversations is really critical here. So today we're going to talk about that starting meaningful conversations part, but I also want to dispel a little bit of a myth because what a lot of people think this looks like is I put a post on Facebook or Instagram, and then if I'm doing a good job, that post will turn into a conversation. Well, that conversation doesn't necessarily then turn into a customer. So it doesn't go post sell, post customer, post team. This is where a lot of people measure their social media incorrectly. And when someone comes to me and they say, hey, you know, my social media is not working, or it might be a corporate or a general manager or a CEO of a company that comes to me and says, my field social media is not working because they post and they don't get sales. Well, that's because social media isn't as simple as I put up a post, I get a sale. It doesn't work like that. How it does work is you put up a post, you start a conversation, you build a relationship, you build trust, you get a customer. And that is a process, and that can take time. That can be an overnight thing, but it's rare. Generally speaking, it takes 8 to 12 what we call touch points before somebody converts to becoming a customer. But let me tell you, when you've gone through those touch points, when you've built up that trust, when you've built up that relationship, they're not just customers anymore. They're now raving fans that are going to shout about you from the rooftops. So how do we get them there? So remember this, conversations on social media are one of the most important activities that you can invest your time in, not posting. And again, this is a little bit of a myth where people assume that posting is where I should be putting all my time. In fact, I see a lot of people out there trying to become an influencer, and that is honestly, it is influencers that are financially doing well are very, very minimal. So just because you've got a large following does not mean that you're converting those people and that you're building a sustainable business. However, posting is an important part of the journey, but the part of the journey I want to focus on is something else you should be investing your time in every day, and that is starting those meaningful conversations. And the great news is conversations can be started on social media in lots of different ways. So the most obvious way is comments. So when someone comments back on your post, you're able to comment back and have this backwards and forwards. That's the easiest and most obvious. But what happens when people aren't commenting on your posts? Well, I'm glad you asked, because there are lots of other ways you can start conversations other than comments on your post. Now, let me start with this one very important thing. People may not see your post, and you might be sitting there getting frustrated because you're like, well, my posts aren't being delivered and no one's commenting on them, and what's happening? Well, my friend, it's time for you to get out of your own page and go and comment on other people's content, because while they may not see your post, I can tell you the post they do see is always going to be their own. So when you show up in their feed, when you show up on their post, when you interact with them in a meaningful way, they're going to see you. So one of the activities you can put just 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes a day into, it's so simple, is just go to your Facebook or your Instagram feed or your LinkedIn feed or wherever it is that you're hanging out and comment on somebody else's post. Now, I'm going to put a disclaimer in here because I do not want you to misunderstand what I'm saying. I did not say go and sell on somebody else's post. I said comment, interact in a meaningful way. So don't jump on someone's post and go, well, I've got a solution to your problem, or man, I had someone do this recently. Man, you could do with some collagen, Sam. Your skin's looking a little tired there. That, my friends, is not what I'm suggesting, and that will get you in hot water and lose you a lot of friends very quickly. So and I know you weren't going to do that, but have a little laugh at my expense, because this sort of thing does happen. What I'm suggesting that you do is go and learn about your audience, learn about your friends and family, get to know people, invest in them, build the trust, build the relationship, and guess what else you'll do in the meantime? Build your own credibility as well. So you can comment on people's posts, share your experience with things, laugh at things, congratulate them on things, be a real human being, because that's what you are. It's what you do best. So be you, but just do it on social media in a friendly, real, relatable way. Now, you might, by the way, be sitting there right now, and I hope that you're not, but just in case you are and you're thinking, well, but I don't really have time to invest in that. I'm going to just stop you for a second, because if you're an average person right now in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, America, or any other country in the world for that matter, you probably spend a certain amount of time per day scrolling through reels or scrolling through your social media. In fact, the average American right now spends, wait for this, 3 hours a day scrolling social media. Now, I know that that's not you. Of course it's not you. It wouldn't be you. But if it is you, can you find 5 minutes? Can you just take 5 of those minutes to not do the scrolling that's not going to get you anywhere or grow you, but instead go jump on someone else's feed, interact with them, say hi, start conversations that are meaningful? I reckon you probably could. And if you're not one of those people who spends 3 hours a day, congratulations. You're not the average person, and hopefully you're doing much more productive tasks with your day. So let's talk about some other ways that you can start some meaningful conversations. Story reactions and poll responses are a brilliant place as well. Now, this is something a lot of people don't realize, but when you put a story in your Instagram or your Facebook feed, or a poll, those things can happen in stories as well, or you ask a question or whatever it is that you do in your stories, when someone responds, unlike a standard post, it's not going on to the story, it's a direct inbox message. So let me just be clear here. If you want to take people from post to inbox immediately, do more stories, because you skip the step of the comments, they land immediately in your inbox. Essentially, if someone comments on your story, you've straight away got an inbox conversation going on with that person. Win. What a great opportunity. So post more stories. Stories are so simple because you don't have to think about the caption to go with it. And, they're lost in 24 hours, which means, of course, they can just be a bit of what goes on in your day. So post more stories. It gets you straight to the inbox. It starts more conversations. And don't forget about the interactive story options as well, like questions and polls, etc., etc. Okay. Another one that you may not have thought of is new followers or friends. So what a lot of people do is they just accept a follower or a friend request and they don't think much about it. But what if you were to use that opportunity to send a message and say, hey, it's so great to connect with you, and ask a question? Show them that they're seen. People need to feel like they're seen. And when they feel seen, they trust in a genuine way. This is not manipulation. This isn't fake. This is about building a real relationship and understanding how human beings work. Every human wants to feel seen and heard. So see and hear them. And so send them a message and thank them for being your friend. Thank them for following you. Thank them for taking that time out to be a part of your journey and get to know a little piece of their journey. It's going to help you in the long run, and it's going to help them feel like they're not just another number to you. Okay, so you've got comments, you've got stories and polls, you've got new followers, you've got interacting on other people's posts. Last but not least is groups. This, again, my friends, is a completely underestimated tool here. So when you get to know your audience, and you would have hopefully heard me a few times saying, if you've done anything with me before, for sure you've heard me say that one of the most impactful, powerful things you can do on social media is first get to know who you're speaking to, because the platforms know a scary amount about all of the users, right? Yeah, they know a scary amount about you and me, so much so that they can often predict behaviors before they've even happened. Let's not go down that rabbit hole today. But here's what I want you to understand. When you get to know something really simple about your audience that qualifies them to you, such as, I know that my audience might be of a particular age and they might be going through a particular challenge in life. Let's use menopause as an example. You might know that your audience is typically someone going through menopause. I know that my audience is typically someone who is trying to grow a business and they're doing it without team. So it's a solopreneur. That's what I call a lot of my fans and followers. You guys are solopreneurs. You're growing a business on your own. You don't have staff, et cetera, et cetera. So typically that's the sort of audience I'm looking for. Now, that type of audience frequent particular types of Facebook groups. So there might be a solopreneur Facebook group out there. It's probably not going to be called that, but I could certainly find plenty of them. I might be able to, if I were you and your audience was, women going through perimenopause, for example, find some groups in an area that's relevant to you going through that experience. You might recognize that your audience are working moms with kids of a particular age. Now think about it. Those types of people are looking for certain types of things. It might be, craft activities for the kids, or school holiday activities, or, cheap and easy date time with your husband, ideas. So find some groups where your audience hang out. Now, you can also think about your product and your business and think about what qualifies them for that as well. So it may be they have particular skin concerns, they have particular health concerns, they have particular values. It might be chemical-free living, for example. Whatever that is, identify some things about them and go and find some groups where you know those types of people hang out. Now, here's the great thing. You don't need to get it right the first time. You're going to learn this pretty quickly, but you can also observe your existing customers, fans, and followers to find some of this information out. In fact, if you think about, say, your top 1, 2, or 3 customers that you have right now, and you go to their Facebook feed, you will be able to see what groups they belong to. It tells you right there. So it's going to tell you what some of their interests are. So join some of those groups. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is interact on people's posts. Now, what I said before stands here too. This is not your opportunity to sell. This is your opportunity to build credibility, provide value, but most importantly, simply be seen. So the more you show up, the more people see you, the more they lean in, the more they want to get to know you, and you become that person that they're curious about. So this is where you can share your knowledge, share your value. Not, hey, I know all about XYZ product, who wants to buy it from me? But rather, oh my goodness, yes, I went through something really similar. This is what I found. Not product. Remember, be very careful of that, but just share your experiences. You could put a post up every now and again saying, hey, I've got this awesome recipe, or I discovered something really cool. What does everybody else think? So show up in some groups, start to build the relationship with people, build the credibility, build a personal brand. You only need to show up once a day, every so often. It doesn't need to take long. Again, spend just 3, 4, 5 minutes doing this activity, and you will, I promise, start meaningful conversations and get to know people. Okay. So that's starting conversations. Now, I want to also, just before I go through the form method, I want to quickly mention this really important thing that you must not forget, and that is the coffee chat rule. If you wouldn't say it over coffee, if you wouldn't say it in person, if you were meeting with someone and connecting with them, do not put it on social media. Because social media is exactly the same thing. It's just a tool to converse. So why people show up as a completely different version of themselves and speak in a way they wouldn't speak if they were person to person baffles me. You're still dealing with humans. You're not dealing with a different kind of a being here. You're dealing with humans. So don't use language you wouldn't use in person. If you were going to sit down and have a cup of tea or coffee with someone, you would ask them some questions about themselves. You wouldn't sit in front of them and go, okay, great. I'm so glad that you're here. I want to talk to you now all about this really great business opportunity. I know you're going to be really excited to hear about it. I was excited. Here are some things you need to know. Let me run through it all with you. And then would you like to join me? Would you like to be a part of this? I think you'd be a great addition to my team. Of course you wouldn't do that. Why wouldn't you do it? Because number 1, you didn't let them talk. And number 2, it's a full-on pitch and sell that they did not ask for. So why do we do it on social media? Instead, if you sat down with someone for a tea or coffee, and you notice I say this because I'm Australian and that's what you do in Australia. Hey, and sit down for a coffee. That's just how we roll. So if you're not a coffee drinker, substitute whatever you want. Make it a wine, make it a hot chocolate. It doesn't matter. The point is, if you're going to sit down with someone for a catch up, I had to say that, I'm sorry, because I did have someone the other day say, why do you keep talking about catching up for coffee? We just don't do that. So you sit down with them for whatever beverage you choose, and then you would ask them a question. Hey, how you doing? How's work? What have you been up to? You would chat. And then the business opportunity might come up. But at the end of the day, it's more important that you converse with them as a human being, get to know them, build a relationship, and be friends, not, hey, let me broadcast you and tell you everything you need to know. So just remember that, the coffee chat rule. So instead of, thanks for following, would you like information on my business? Say something like, hey, thanks for connecting. I notice you're also into hiking. What are some of the trails that you've done? Get to know them, be a human being. You already know how to do that, so I'm not going to spend much more time doing this. Before we jump back into the episode, I want to quickly share with you a tool that I created just for you. If you've been feeling a bit like social media feels super overwhelming, I don't know what to do next, and I'm just sick of overthinking it and throwing spaghetti at the wall and waiting to see what sticks. If that feels a little bit like you right now and you aren't getting the results that you want, that's exactly why I wrote my book, Show Up Anyway. Show Up Anyway is a really simple read. I wanted to make this fast and implementable. You'll be able to read it in 1 or 2 quick sittings, but most importantly, every chapter has an action step at the end of it and a process you can follow to get the results that you've been hoping for. So if that sounds a little bit like you can go to the show notes, you can grab a copy there, or of course you can jump onto Amazon and order your copy. It's available in Kindle, it's available as a paperback, and now also in Audible in certain regions. All right, let's get back into the episode. So let's just quickly talk about the form method here. The trick to this is becoming a detective. Now, I want to give you 4 really simple things that you can start to prioritize to get to know about your audience that are going to help you have real, meaningful conversations. Now, right now, you might be thinking, well, I don't really know what to say, or I don't really know what would be relevant. Well, the great thing about social media is everyone tells you everything you need to know because they're posting about themselves all the time. And what is everybody's favorite subject? Themselves. So that makes this job for you really simple. Become a detective. Remember that this is about getting to know who they are, what they care about, what matters to them, so that you can start those meaningful conversations. So a few things you want to look for are things like hobbies, family, pets, travel, business, interests. What can you genuinely connect over? So here is the form method. This is a really easy conversation framework that you can use anywhere you go. And as you get talking to people, even if it's in person, it might be at a dinner party, at a barbecue, it could be online, wherever it is, and it could even be a new customer or a new team member, start to jot some of these things down about them. So the form method is FORM. The F stands for family. So simple question, do they have kids? Do they have grandkids? Do they have pets? This is going to matter. Somebody's family is one of the most important parts of who they are. And if you take the time to get to know these things about them, it will change everything. Now, I'm going to let you in on a little secret here before I go to O. And that is, I flash this around a lot, but one of the things that we teach inside of our memberships is the Hot 100 list. Now, the Hot 100 list is not in itself a complicated thing. It's really simple. It's 100 people in your pipeline that you would like to connect with and get to know and build a relationship with. And there are lots of tricks to this. I've talked about it on the podcast before, but the biggest one is not to have an end in mind when you start conversations, but understand that the relationship could go anywhere and the gift is in that itself. So when you put someone on your Hot 100 list, and we're not going to talk about that today, just remember you don't need to be asking, well, will they buy from me? Because it doesn't really matter. They could end up being someone that introduces you to somebody that buys from you. They're simply someone who's in your circle of influence that you're just building the relationship with. Where that goes, no one knows. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because I want to share with you how I used to note this stuff down. And a lot of my members now use this process because it's easy. It doesn't require any technical ability. You can carry it with you anywhere you go. It's old school, and there's something nice about pen to paper. So here's what I used to do. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see what I'm doing right now, but I'll describe it for anyone who's just listening. I'm just holding up what I call my little black book. I probably should have picked a different color because little black book sounds a little bit inappropriate, doesn't it? But it's simply a little book that had 200 pages. And you'll notice if you're looking at this, I've got little tabs that separate each page. And each tab has got the name of the person who's represented on that page. Now, where the form method came from is if I open my little book here, on each page, I've got a double spread. And on one side, I have written the name of the person or the company that I want to work with or that I want to build the relationship with, and everything that I get to know about them. So everything that is in form is here. So if I get to know their family, if I get to know if they've got kids, grandkids, or pets, I write those things down. I write their birthdays if they come up. I write down how old they are if it's relevant or comes up, their names. Why do I do that? I do it because I can't rely on my memory, guys, and neither should you. And if I have taken the time to note it down, they know that they matter, and they do. I've taken the time to say this piece of information is not irrelevant. It may not generate a sale for me, but you matter. Therefore, when I speak to them and I mention their child, or I speak about the birthday that they had last month or whatever it might be, they know that I took the time to listen to what they said, even if they didn't mean to give me that information. Often these things come up through interesting methods, such as social media. I saw it on a post, or they might have said it in passing, or even might have overheard it at a convention. Write it down. Now, the other side is where I note down all of my interactions with that person. So I sent an email on this day, or they sent me a messenger message on this day, or whatever it might be. Again, if you're building a business, start the way you intend to finish. And I would like to think that you intend for your business to get so busy that you simply can't rely on memory to remember all of the emails you received, all of the messages you got, all the interactions you had. It doesn't mean that you don't care about that person. So I do not rely on memory. I write it down. Now, you notice I said that I used to use the little black book method. The reason I say that is I now do it with something that I can carry around with me all the time, which is my phone. This is not very technical, okay? So if you're expecting me to tell you about some really whiz-bang cool tool that I use, and there are lots of them out there, you're about to be sorely disappointed. Guess how I do it now? I put it in my contacts. If you are in my contacts, I put notes in there about these things. So I might see you in passing and quickly go, oh my gosh, what was her son's name? I can't remember, but it's important, right? So I quickly go to my phone. I've got it in there. It's quick. It's easy. I've got it on me all the time. So that's how I do it now. Now, let's get back to the form method, okay? Because these are the things that you're going to be jotting down in those notes and remembering about them, because they start meaningful conversations, so that you're not, the only thing you've got to talk about is no longer your product or your business all the time. So family is F. Let's go to O. O is occupation. Occupation is, of course, do they have a job? Do they have a business? Are they retired? Now, I'll also point out with these things, when it comes to occupation, the O represented here, you also want to get to know whether or not they are where they want to be as well. It's not as simple as do they have a job? It's do they have a job and are they happy in their job? Do they have a business and is it the business of their dreams? Are they retired or do they want to be retired? So while you may not get to know all of this immediately, these are things to get to know. Almost kind of like a game. It's like something exciting to uncover a piece of each time you connect with this person. Okay, let's move to the R of form, and the R is recreation. Recreation is, what are their hobbies? Do they love to travel? If they do, where do they travel, or where did they recently travel to? Are they involved in sports? Do they like watching them? Do they like doing them? What are the things that they do with their downtime? These things matter as well. And again, if all you're looking for is the things that are relevant to making a sale, guys, you're taking, first of all, so much joy out of life and out of the relationships and out of your business if it's all about the quick fix sale. But also, to me, that's not why we do what we do. I know you know this, but you're not here just to sell your product, and you're not here just to recruit people into your business in order to just make money. That's not what this is about. This is about making an impact. And I know that you want to make an impact, but to make that impact, you need to understand the people that you're impacting. So getting to know these things is so critically important. Now, if you're not one of those people, well, maybe there's another conversation we need to have right now, because it's very rarely about money. But getting to know people puts the joy in it, and it also shows people that they care and they matter, because you want people to treat you that way as well. So be the person that you want others to be for you. The M, the final one in form, or the final letter in form, is for motivation. Motivation is, what are they working towards and what excites them? I also, if you hear me talking about the 2 golden questions, you'll hear me speak about what gets them up in the morning, and that's the motivation. So essentially, what lets them up? What gets them excited? What are their values? Now, this one is going to be the secret sauce when it comes to product and business opportunity, because if what you have is in alignment with where they want to go, suddenly you've got a meaningful conversation in that space. But until you've got this particular piece of information, it may not be time to talk about the product or the business yet. So treat it a little bit like an adventure. I'm finding out this valuable information about them. I'm applying the form. And once I get to M, I'm going to have a much better idea of how I can truly serve this person, support this person, be a part of this person's world in a meaningful way. So last but not least, I want to finish off on something that I learned way back when I was in my corporate role. And this one strategy actually led to me not only being in the top position at the role that I was in, the top salesperson, but also the top trainer. And I had this super skill that I remember people used to say to me, Sam, how on earth do you do it? My job was not only to close sales, but they used to send me in to save people that wanted to cancel. Now, the role that I had, just to give you a little bit of context here, was I worked for one of the biggest print marketing companies. It was actually globally, but in Australia at that time. And of course, yes, we've got to sell advertising space, but we also often would have clients that wanted to withdraw. And the second that happened, I used to get handed the name and number of this person, and it was my job to go in and save them, simply because I closed 90% of them. I kept 90% of them on, and they had no idea how I did it. But here's how I did it. It's no secret. I was taught this. I didn't make it up. I was taught this by somebody else who taught me, and I have taught it to thousands of people since who all use this because it's so powerful and it's so easy. Usually, when someone is trying to make a sale, or is trying to save someone that wants to cancel, what do? They deal with the objection. That's what you're taught to do. In lots of cases, certainly in mine, we were even taught to role play every possible objection that could come up and how would we overcome that. But that was never how I dealt with these situations. I wouldn't go in and go, right, I need to figure out what the objection is and I need to tackle it. What I did was I asked another question. My job was get you to talk. Your favorite subject is yourself. Get you to talk. And usually one of two things would happen. The first thing that would often happen is the person would talk themselves back into the program that we were selling them, because I gave them a listening ear and I gave them the chance to get out what was going on, and they would realize that they were better off being in than out. But the second thing that would happen, if that wasn't what it was, is that by talking and asking another question, I would uncover the true objection. Now, often we tackle the surface objection, the thing that we think's going on. This is why they're saying no. This is why they're saying they can't afford it. This is why they're saying they're not interested. But usually there's something much deeper going on, and we've got to uncover what that is. So here's the thing. I used to go in and say to myself, Sam, when you don't know the answer for certain, ask another question. And even when you think you know the answer, still ask another question, keep them talking. If someone said to me, Sam, you've only got 5 minutes of my time, I knew that it was just, you've got 5 minutes to get me talking, and then you can have all the time you want. And that is literally how it would roll. So this is the same. I know I'm going down a little rabbit hole here, but I want you to understand this. When you show up on social media and you connect with somebody, you've only got 3 seconds. You don't even have 5 minutes. You've got 3 seconds to impress them. How are you going to do that? By getting them talking about themselves. So if you don't know the answer and you don't know how to convert them yet, you don't know how to sell to them, you don't know how to get them on board, you don't know how to get them to join your team, awesome. Ask another question. And it may be that that person is not a fit for you or you're not a fit for them, but you're not going to discover that until you take the time to get to know them a little bit better. But that person could be somebody who either impacts you with a piece of powerful wisdom that changes the way that you show up. They could introduce you to someone that totally revolutionizes your business, becomes one of your top leaders. You never know where that relationship will go. So if your focus is on getting to know people, building the relationship by starting meaningful conversations. And every day you put just 5 minutes into starting 3 new conversations. It does not need to take heaps of time, but I can tell you it is one of the most powerful activities you can ever do in your business. Build yourself your own Hot 100 list. Grow your network, because your network, my friend, is your net worth. And last but not least, remember this: not everybody is for you. So as you do this, you're going to uncover people who are absolutely your people, but you're also going to find people that aren't. And you need to learn to catch and release, because not everybody you write down that you want to work with, not everybody that you think is going to be your ideal customer will end up being your ideal customer. And I can tell you that you'll end up in a whole world of pain when you try and force the relationship with somebody because you're seeing dollar signs and opportunities, but they're just not meant for you. Release them to someone that they are meant to do business with. And remember, you have a dream customer that was intended for you, somebody and a group of somebodies out there who you were put on this earth to impact, to have an influence with, to connect with, to build relationship with. And so as you start conversations, understand that as those conversations take place, as you build those relationships, some of them will go in amazing directions and others just weren't meant to be. And that, my friends, is okay, because every no is one step closer to a yes, and you have to get no's to get closer to those yeses. So that's it from me today. I hope you have taken lots of notes and at least have one thing that you can implement off the back of this episode. Remember, this is about the action you take, not the knowledge you gain. Knowledge isn't power, it's only potential power. It's how you use it that gets you the growth. So go ahead right now, do something with this knowledge. Utilize it in a way that's going to grow you and or your business, because your business will never grow beyond the point where you grow yourself. Thank you again for tuning into the podcast. Don't forget, number one, if this has been valuable for you, please share it with somebody else. Help us spread the message and grow our impact. And number two, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. That's it from me. So great to have you here, and we'll see you again on the podcast next week. Bye for now. Thank you so much for listening. If this episode gave you more clarity, courage, or strategy to show up online, please make sure that you subscribe and follow so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. And of course, share this message with someone else that might need to hear it. But that's it for us from now. We'll see you next week.